Alive, you are live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is Nat.Geo Smith. We have Jean-Ray on camera. Unfortunately, Jamie and VM have been waylaid due to some technical difficulties, but hopefully they'll be out as soon as possible. And then we have Geraldine and Louise in final control. So it was a rather quiet but very beautiful morning. So we are heading out now into the last area where we saw those male leopard tracks, just at the off chance that he has crossed out of the block that we think he went into during the day. But other than that, our plan for this evening's sunset safari is not to have a plan. We're just gonna meander through the bush, see what fascinates us, and we'll stop accordingly. So don't forget, if you are fascinated by something, drop me an email on questions@WildEarthTV or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So, Zizi, a new viewer, welcome Zizi to this live African safari. Zizi would like to know if our camera moves automatically or if there's someone behind it. Zizi, there's a very big smelly person behind it. His name is Jean-Ray. There you go, there's his hand, and here's our cameraman today. So there is a person behind it. It would be quite nice if it could move automatically and we wouldn't have to deal with any cameraman, but alas, no, I'm only joking, Jean-Ray, shame. No, we've got very, very great cameramen, and they help us with spotting and also looking for tracks. So a really, really integral part of our team. So we do need them. What was that noise? I think it was a birdie. I can't see where it was. But yes, no. The cameramen are operated, and the cameras are operated by cameramen. And of course, being automatic, it would be very difficult to get to the right spot and on the action. So that's why we need experienced wildlife cameramen like we have. So, very clear day. Sun is shining. It's around 30 degrees Celsius, which is 78 Fahrenheit, I think, somewhere around there. So I apologize, it's 84 Fahrenheit, 29 degrees Celsius. So we're gonna zoom in quickly there. And there we go. I just wanted to, in case they flew off before we got closer, looks like a pair of brown snake eagles. And that it is. Let's try to get a little bit closer. So all the snake eagle species have got some really cool little adaptations that helps them catch the serpents of Africa. Of course, they don't feed exclusively off serpents. They will eat little rodents and lizards and other reptiles and other mammals as well. But they have no feathers on their legs, and they have a very thick scaling on their legs that helps protect them from the bites of snakes and enables them to catch and kill snakes. Now, we have quite a few species here. The most common of the proper true snake eagles that we see is these guys. I'm trying to find a gap through the branches. I think it's going to be a little bit better a bit further down the road, which is the brown snake eagle. The Bateleur, which we see quite often as well, is a relative of the brown snake eagles, although it is more of a scavenger than a true snake eater, although they will also hunt snakes if given the opportunity. Now, there are, as I said, a few others. The black-breasted snake eagle is not one we see too often here. and it is one I'm missing from my Djuma list. So who knows, maybe snake eagle luck is on our side today, and we'll be able to produce a snake eagle or 3 we haven't seen before. Now, it has been a glorious summer's day. The sun is shining, and there are lots of little flowers out below us. Most of them are justicias, but on these justicias are a huge amount of butterflies, and we've got quite a few different species at the moment. There we go, look at that. Now, let's have a look. Okay, so we've got some of the whites, and we've got a yellow, but it's not, oh, does it have a sulfur tip, an orange tip to the edge of that yellow? Unfortunately, yes, it does. I can't remember that one's name, and I did forget my butterfly book today. But there we go, those are whites and yellows, very, very descriptively named. But we do have a few other species that have slightly better names than white and yellow. Let's just have a quick look. I did see a few. There are some vagrants. Oh, okay. If we come out of it, Jean-Andre, and we go to the base of that guarri tree. There we go. A little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and a little bit more to the right. Slightly out a bit. Sorry, I'm just trying to see. A little bit more to the right. I think Jean-Andre is messing with me. But now it's just be patient. You see, there's a beautiful little yellow pansy. That's the one we're looking for. And there we go. Some brown-veined whites. We've got some African vagrants. But that dash of color in the middle when it flies is called the yellow pansy. There it is. Look at that with those beautiful blue eyes and black and yellow on the wing. It is fascinating. It almost looks like the ground is alive with butterflies in this particular area. So, and they're all feeding off the same species of flower, which is a yellow justicia. So really fascinating stuff. It's not always about the leopards and the lions. It's also to do with the butterflies and birds and other fantastic creatures we get out here. Oh, scarlet tip. Oh, he's very fast. He's gonna drive Jean-Andre absolutely mad. But Jean-Andre, being the consummate professional that he is, was on him till he disappeared. But scarlet tip is a white butterfly that's got this incredible red tip on its wings. But they are very, very fast, so quite difficult to get. But it is absolutely beautiful. I have a very special spot for butterflies. And I actually decided this year was the year I was going to brush up on my butterfly knowledge. And we have found some species that I haven't been able to identify in the books. So I've emailed them off to an entomologist, or actually, sorry, a lepidopterist to try and identify those unknown butterfly species. So there are many hundreds of different butterfly species in Africa, and some of the more difficult to identify are these tiny little blue guys. And I think we've only ever managed to get 1 or 2 on camera because they are near impossible to see when we're driving. So a big welcome to Bonnie, who's a first-time viewer. Welcome to the Safari Live family, Bonnie. Bonnie says she thinks this is just wonderful for those who can't travel. Absolutely amazing. Well, Bonnie, we're glad you enjoy, and we really do appreciate your feedback and comments, and we do love to share our passion for Africa and its animals with all of you guys out there. Hear some birds. Let's see if we can catch up with them. Tamara would like to know, why do birds call all night at Djuma? But where she lives, oh, it flew away, don't worry. In Holland, it's completely silent. But we've got another one. Oh, there we go. Let's just try. There we go. One of my favorite. You got him, Jean-Ray? Up and to the left. Oh, he's jumping there. Yeah. There's a. Speaking of a bird, tomorrow. Oh, it's got something. It's a white helmet shrike. And it. Oh, it got stolen. Before it could swallow, it got swallowed by another one. So that is white helmet shrikes. They live in small flocks, 7 to 11 birds. Very, very pretty guys. Look at that wonderful yellow eye. So there, we have seen quite a lot of birds feeding off caterpillars. Tomorrow, I haven't forgotten you. I will be back to your question once we finish watching this little guy. Oh, look at it as he comes out into the sunlight. You can see how striking a bird he really is. In search of another tasty morsel. Often referred to as the, missed, 7 sisters. They're often in flocks of 7. Of course, in the flock, they're not all sisters. It'll be a mixture of males and females. Oh, off it goes. Isn't that wonderful? So, tomorrow I will get to you now, but just that we saw that helmet shrike feeding off that, looked like an inchworm of some kind, and Dee would like to know, with the late rains we had, has the insect life improved? It has immensely, Dee. There's an absolute huge number of insects, probably not as much as there were earlier in the season, but driving around at night with the spotlight, you do take a little risk as the beetles bang into your forehead, but it is wonderful, especially for a lot of the birds and smaller little mammalian carnivores like mongoose. There's a lot more food around for them now. So tomorrow, back to your question, why do the birds call at night here and through the night, where you don't have any in Holland where you live making that noise? Chandra has got another bird. There we go, a yellow-billed hornbill. So, there he goes. Tomorrow, let me try and think about this for a second. So, well, firstly, I don't know how many nocturnal species outside the Isles live in Holland. Holland is part of the sort of temperate zone, so you don't get great speciation, you don't get a lot of diversity. Also, Holland is a very, very... Oh, he's also got a worm, another inchworm. So these are the larvae, probably of butterflies that are being eaten now. Oh. So tomorrow, I mean, put it this way, we've got more bird species in the Sabi Sands than they've got in the whole of the United Kingdom. So because of the type of vegetation and stuff that is in temperate or old world Europe, and also the fact that old world Europe is very, very built up, you don't have that many big open spaces. So you're never going to have that many bird species. I think the only nocturnal bird species I know for sure in Holland that you might actually hear, but it's not one you really want to be listening to, is the barn owl. I'll find its call for you guys now. So that is the one. It's definitely there, but that's the only nocturnal I can think of. Here we have a lot of other nocturnal bird species. So if you listen carefully during the night here, you're going to hear normally pearl-spotted owlet, Scops owlet, white-faced Scops owlet, barred owlet, barn owl, and then Verreaux's eagle owl and spotted eagle owl. You can potentially hear in an evening. You will normally hear 4 of those in a night, as well as the different nightjar species. Now, nightjars are a very specific nocturnal bird, so they only come out at night, and that's why you hear them calling. And then also we have thickneys and coursers, which are very similar to lapwings or plovers, but they are a nocturnal version. So we've got a lot more bird species that are active at night. So that's probably why you're hearing more birds at night. Again, that was close. As Land Rovers are not well known for their doors being very secure, and I nearly fell out yesterday. That's 2 days in a row now. Fortunately, I have cat-like reflexes. So tomorrow, that's probably the main reason. Jean-Ray is cackling away behind me, that you don't hear that many birds at night. It also depends where you are. So, of course, if you're in a very built-up area, you're not going to hear many birds at all. But this morning, we had a question. But we will come back to that question. I did promise to tell about the African version of Bigfoot on the Sunrise Safari, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But Jamie seems to have, or the tech team seems to have beaten Jamie's technological problem. So let's go see what she's got to say, or what she's got in store for you on this sunset safari.
Good afternoon, and it does indeed seem as though the tech team has beaten off Wendy's demons, for now gremlins I mean. Between Alex, Eugene and Connor, they all frantically were working around Wendy, and she seems to be up and running once again. Now, before I realized that I was going to have to race back to DRC, I'm sure I saw a giraffe somewhere here, but it appears to have disappeared off for now. And just while we were, a funny story about while we were waiting to go out and about, the monkeys managed, in the briefest moment during which the storeroom door to our pantry was left open, they managed to get in and ingeniously have now figured out a way of getting around our system, which is to seal everything off in glass jars. And all we heard was the smash of glass and a monkey racing away with a bundle of rusks. Now, rusks, for those of you who don't know or unfamiliar with South African cuisine, is a type of hard biscuit best enjoyed in the mornings with a cup of coffee. I don't know what that monkey was planning on, but he definitely got away with the grand heist this afternoon, leaving poor Dave to clean up the mess, since I've got VM on camera with me, so we had to be out as quickly as possible. It just goes to show how ingenious monkeys can really be when it comes to food. And I'm very sorry to poor Jerry in final control, who is devastated by the loss of the rusks. I imagine that there'll be a couple of people in camp who are relatively upset. I must admit I'm going through a bit of a rusk break in my life. I went through a stage where that was breakfast every single morning, and I've decided that perhaps I'm not that keen on them right now. So sorry, Jerry, the monkeys have got the rusks. We threw the rest of the rusks away, unfortunately. I don't know. You're welcome to get them if you're willing to brave the shards of glass that have probably implanted themselves within it. Definitely wouldn't suggest gastric ulcerations for just a rusk in the morning. The other thing I've got out with is, largely thanks to VM's suggestion, calipers. These are VM's calipers, and we're going out, we're going to find leopard tracks, and we're going to measure them. We're going to find leopard tracks that we know which individual is responsible for, and we're going to go measure them down to the millimeter. I have to be honest, I do some relatively quick, rough conversions in my head, but I'm going to have to ask you for help in converting sort of millimeters and centimeters to whatever system would be best in the imperial system, quarters of an inch and eighths of an inch, and I really honestly don't know how it works from anything smaller than an inch. So you'll have to convert for me, or help me convert, and we'll be able to measure each and every, well no, that's not true. We won't be able to measure each and every single leopard track of the individuals we see, but we will be able to measure the ones that are somewhere on this road. VM, have I gone past them, or am I still?
Oh, no, they're all the way that way.
Ah, they're all the way that way. In that case, let's go all the way that way. Brent was tracking Mvula this morning. whilst Dave and myself were enjoying several elephant sightings towards Buffelshoek Dam. Right, we'll go this way then. We'll go and find Mvula's tracks and measure them. I have a friend who studies tracking, and their opinion is that you can identify each and every single leopard track by the exact sort of millimeter that it's down to, at least within an area. They say that with 90% accuracy, once they see a track and measure it, they'll be able to tell you which individual that is. That, of course, is substrate dependent, so we can't just measure Mvula's tracks in the soft sand and assume that it's the same for everything. But I thought it might just be a fun little scientific project. We can keep a chart of the different leopards' track size. You know what I didn't bring though? It was a notebook with a pen and a piece of paper. So perhaps maybe if you guys can keep the records for me, then we can start collecting and collating them. Doesn't have to be restricted to leopards at all though. We can go and just have a, because I know that scale is sometimes an issue, we can also go and have a look at some lion tracks and just give you an idea of just how much bigger, down to the millimeter, a lion track is than a leopard track, whether or not it is a male or a female. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to the Game Drive channel. I wanted to get an update on Tingana. This morning I went to check the eastern boundary in order to find out where Tingana had decided to move off to, and I'm just listening to that update coming through now. Sounds as though he's wandered across into Chitwa. So he did cross back east, but he crossed back east further to the south of our boundary. So, UK expat, welcome to the Sunset Safari on the subject of our monkeys and their mischief. You were wondering, how does a rusk compare to biscotti? And the answer is it's very similar to biscotti. I'm trying to think exactly what... Generally, rusks tend to be quite large in terms of size. From my knowledge of biscotti, they tend to be relatively small pieces, but it's a very similar... What's the word I'm looking for? Density? That's not texture. Texture is what I'm going with. Very, very similar texture. And comes in a wide variety of different flavors, depending on whatever your preferences may be. Me personally, I'm a muesli girl. I like the bits of the raisins and the nuts. Some people enjoy buttermilk. I find buttermilk a bit bland. It's definitely a snack that is always interesting to watch people eat. When they first come across to visit South Africa and they have their first rusk and they don't realize that a rusk, in order not to be molar shattering in terms of how hard it is, it has to be dunked, whether or not you want to, it has to be dunked in coffee or tea and allowed to soak. Okay. And Tiana, that's something we do in South Africa as well. You were just saying that rusks in the US are used for teething babies. That South Africans do as well. I'm trying to find a nice spot to show you these tracks that are very much sort of in dappled light, but I think those might be relatively visible. There you go. Here's the male leopard tracks, okay? Armed with the caliper, kindly provided by VM. It's set out to measure the size of a male leopard's tracks. and in particular, Mvula's tracks. There we go. This is what we are going to be utilizing with different measurements. Increasing a little bit of scientific method. I must just tell you that this was entirely VM's idea, not myself. Right, we're going to do, let's think about this properly. We'll do right front foot, back right foot, left front foot, left back foot. That's how we're going to do it. That will be our method for all future track measuring approaches. So, the right one, let's start with here, just so that you can see it while it's in the sun. How do I know it's the right foot? I'll tell you in a moment. I'm going to measure first, and then I'll give a bit of a broader description for those of you who are less familiar with leopard tracks. And I'm going to take it from the furthest point, at least I think that's how I'm going to do it. The furthest point to the furthest point. That seems is the furthest point. Note to self, I need another straight object to help me out here. So his his front right foot is 11.6 millimeters. Nope, sorry, 11.8 millimeters. Everybody got that written down? 11.8 millimeters. No, that's not right. Centimeters. 11.8 centimeters. This is going very well. His back foot, Mvula's back foot, in terms of length, is 10.2 centimeters. Okie dokie.
Mike died there. Just your mic's dying.
My mic's dying. That's unfortunate.
Okay, got it back.
Okay, got it back. Cool.
And you lean forward.
So it's when I lean forward that it goes funny. Okay. Vim is writing the stuff. Are you writing stuff down for me?
Yeah, what is the first one?
First one was 11.8 centimeters. Second was 10.2 for his back right. Now, for his left front, and I'll come back and I'll repeat the measurements for you. Now, if I lean forward, am I going to disappear again?
Yeah, off again.
Does that help? Okay, we'll try to do this one-handed at the same time. His back left foot is... That's a little bit... That's interesting. No, that can't be right, surely. Where's that toe? Oh, the toe is there. That's very interesting. So his front left is 11 on the dot centimeters. That's interesting. 0.8, almost a centimeter different to the front. And if we do last one, back left track. Is 10.4. Very interesting. Okay, so male leopard tracks. A female's tracks would be about half that size. And we've got, although it's not clearly visible, he's walking relatively fast. His back track's falling quite far from his front tracks. So walking at a sort of medium fast walking speed. I'm not going to stick down there for too long, just because I'm not sure if you're able to hear me while I lean forward. So, what did we get? Interesting. His right front foot, let me get in while I talk to you, just so I can hear your questions and your comments about this at the same time. Bear with me 1 second. So, okay. So his right front is considerably bigger than his left front, and I almost feel as if we should do width as well, but we could be here all day if we get that specific. So his right front is 0.8 centimeters larger than his back track on the right, than his left track on the front, but his back left track is 0.2 millimeters larger than his right back. It's a bit confusing, but there you go. We shall forever know what Willa's tracks shall be, or what size Mvula's tracks are in soft soil substrate. That's an important one to remember. Soft sand substrate, let's put it that way. I'm sure you'd also like to go and track this leopard and not just measure his feet, which is what we are going to try and do. The tracks are not fresh. They're from probably last night sometime, but they are heading roughly in this direction, which is where I'm going to go eventually. Oh no, actually they're not. They've cut straight across to this block here. Going back as well? Oh, now that's interesting. Why is he pacing like that? Ah, I see them. Going that way as well. So he didn't pick a direction really, did he? Okay. Trying to just see if which track is on top of which ones are fresher than which tracks. Pardon?
We tracked him that way this morning.
You tracked him that way this morning? Oh, so Mvula came out sometime while we were not on air. How very interesting. Hold on. There's hyena tracks here. Let's just see if he doesn't pop out at the junction. Is this him here or is it hyena? I'm not tall enough. Cool. Definitely not tall enough for tracking on the left-hand side of the car without getting off. Brent always shouts at me if I miss tracks on my left-hand side, but you know, when you're at least a foot shorter than someone else, it is a bit more difficult. Okay, let's just check this junction properly. So, Tammy, who's watching in Indiana, she's been reading up on melanistic animals and would like to know why it is that we talk about black leopards, but yet there cannot be black lions. And the answer is, Tammy, I was just trying to remember, the melanistic gene is carried by all but 11 members of the Panthera genus, out of something, or the cat family, out of about 37 different members. I have to remember the exact number. But essentially, not all animals carry that melanistic gene. It just hasn't come into their gene programming. So that melanistic gene, it's a recessive gene, has come from most likely either a mutation in the animal's DNA, whether it has come from an addition of a base sequence or a deletion of a base sequence, or whatever has happened there that changed it. And it just hasn't come through in all of the cat species. So there's no reason why there's something different about lions as opposed to leopards that means that they can't be melanistic. For example, you get leucistic lions, the white lions, and you get leucistic leopards in the form, or fairly leucistic leopards in the form of a strawberry-colored leopard that Tara Prairie has written quite a few articles on. So it's just that in some way that has caused it to happen. It has never, ever been recorded except on Photoshop. There's lots of photoshopped black lions, melanistic lions, but there is no such thing as a melanistic lion gene. They haven't carried it before. The only chance you would maybe get of a melanistic lion or some kind of gene entering that sequence is if we played around with it. If we entered the genes, so basically what I mean by that is if we the lion with another member of the Panthera order, or Panthera genus, trying to think this through now in a way that answers your question properly. If we started breeding, it's a tough one. You know, the creation of ligers and tigons and all those abnormalities, and they are relatively, most of the time they've been forced by human interference, those mixes between lions and tigers. I'm just trying to think if maybe you could breed a lion with another melanistic animal and you might start getting it to come through. But it would take a huge amount of human interference. Whereas the leucistic gene is very much a dominant gene within the lion population, or it's a gene that comes through in the lion population. And of course there's that amazing incident where most of the white lions are in the Timbavati region. That's the area that is famous for them. Just doing a loop, by the way. Keep your eyes peeled from Bula, because he's obviously been wondering about between drives. And yet, these are the freshest tracks. These are actually, oh no, they've been driven over there. I can see Brent's footprints up and down from tracking this morning. And yet somehow randomly the white lion gene came through in Singita, which is all the way on Singita Lubombo, which is all the way on the eastern side of the Kruger National Park. So it is distinctly possible that the white lion gene shows through, but it is absolutely impossible to, or it has certainly never been recorded. And lions have never been found to even carry the recessive gene that causes melanism. It's just a genetically distinct animal from jaguars and leopards. It's the same reason why the king cheetah gene is isolated to the cheetah as a species. There's nothing else like that in any of the other big cats, at least that causes that kind of mutation with the thickening of the spots and the stripes on the king cheetahs. Rob, who is watching in the UK, welcome Rob to the Sunset Safari. You were wondering, since we're going to be traversing cheetah plains over the next few weeks, something of course that we're all enormously excited about. You were wondering if I could explain a little bit about the terrain there, and if it's more open, for example, than Djuma, what the differences might be and what individual leopards and lions we might see. So Rob, first of all, yes, it has sections that are very similar to the woodland bush that we're looking at the moment, the sort of bush willow woodland. So quite a few spaces within that are very, very similar. There is the extraordinary 3-in-a-row pan, which is a pumped series of 3 pans that is especially productive for wildlife sightings. And that being said, on the eastern side of Cheetah Plains, it is dominated by gabbro rock layers and soil layers, which give rise to large natural open grassland. And that's what's really, really exciting, I think, for all of us, is the possibility of more cheetah sightings, because the cheetah do tend to spend more time in those open grassland areas. The possibility of Cory bustards, secretary birds, the more clearing-oriented animals. That's something that's going to be ridiculously exciting for us. And then you're also wondering a little bit about the different individual animals. I believe that, is it Shimbambalan that hangs out there? But also, most definitely, Kunuma and Quarantine are spotted in that area far more often than they come onto Djuma. The Birmingham boys spend, or have spent, an inordinate amount of time on Cheetah Plains around 3-in-a-row pan, so they very much enjoy that area, they like that area. The Styx females are probably more likely to be seen on that side. I'm sure I'm missing a leopard here. There's one in particular that I think I've forgotten. But that's the one I'm thinking of, Nkanyeni. Nkanyeni and her 2 cubs. Also a leopard that we could expect to see on cheetah plains, and that is exceptionally exciting. Her cubs are now, what are they? They're about 4 months old. They must be, or close to 4 months old. Close to 4. By the time we get there, they'll be 4.5 months old, and they can very often regularly seen in that area. So, exciting times lie ahead. I just want to check Triple M to see if Mvula hasn't crossed out of that block. We're stuck on Buyatela. Let's just check really carefully. It's so interesting. Look, to say that it's Mvula's tracks, I think is correct. I think that they are a little bit too small for Tingana's footprint. That being said, it's not necessarily an absolute. So we're assuming that it's Mvula's tracks. We don't know for 100% certain, so it could be Tingana that we're tracking. It seems unlikely though, especially since Tingana's been tracked all the way to Chitwa, which is far south of where we are. And those tracks are from last night sometime. The tracks that we saw initially, walking south along the road. Then there's fresher tracks that have come out. There's a truly fascinating question from Kathy about Karula's now reaction to Kunyuma and quarantine, her 2 older sons from a previous litter. And Kathy was wondering, now that Karula has cubs, would she be more likely to turn away Kunyuma and quarantine? Since she has in the past allowed them, even after they've left home or dispersed a little bit, she's still allowed them to come and meet up with her. She's occasionally shared kills with them, not in my time here, but she has been known to do it. Kathy, yes, she is more likely to turn Kunyuma and quarantine away. That being said, there are lots of records of several generations or 2 generations of cubs, litters, feeding or sharing a kill that belongs to their mother. Leopards cannot necessarily be specifically defined, their responses to each other cannot necessarily be defined by a set structure of rules. So whilst I think that Karula would most likely know that centipedes are probably my least favorite animal out here. I'm not proud of it, but I do have a slight shiver when I encounter centipedes. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous because I've never ever been bitten by one. And they are venomous, and their bites apparently hurt. Oh no, that's not true actually. I have been bitten by one, sorry. I'm talking rubbish. I have been bitten by one collecting firewood once. Their bites do burn, and the larger species can carry venom that if you have a nasty reaction to, can make you quite ill. So that was a centipede. We so often see millipedes, but we hardly ever see their centipede cousins. Centipedes, of course, being voracious predators, very, very rapid moving, capable of taking down prey. And in fact, it's the one species that, or one interesting sort of relationship with the scorpion, where the scorpion will feed on the centipede and the centipede might feed on the scorpion. It just depends on who has the size advantage at the time. Millipedes, totally different. Very poisonous to eat, so toxic, you can't eat them, but they can't bite you, and they feed off vegetable matter. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know what it is about centipedes. I have complete respect for them. I think they're beautiful, but they must be at arm's length from me. But that's just a personal, it's my one personal little weakness in the bush. We won't tell anyone though, if you wouldn't mind. Keep that a secret. Hello. Here's his tracks here. That's incredible. Raisa says that from what she remembers, Djuma, one of Karula's previous cubs, had a front track of 11 centimeters by the time he was 2 years old. That's really interesting. That is very, very impressive. By the way, his tracks have just popped out of this block here, and this is where it becomes difficult because it's a main road. They have been driven over multiple times, so I'm just trying to check and see whether or not they've gone off into Arathusa or whether he has just walked south down the road. That's interesting. And I wonder how much of a difference the substrate will play. Obviously, the speed of running, it's going to spread the track out further. It's going to make it look far bigger than just normally walking. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Djuma has dispersed now. Djuma has moved out of our area and away from the territory of his mom. Sorry, I'm just listening to the game drive comms again. I've still got traces of toes of some kind of paw print, but I can't tell if they're his or if they're hyenas. What I'll do is, I'll do one last check around here, see if he hasn't cut through that side, and then I'll check in with the Arathusa guides, see if I can't get any info. In fact, let me just do that when we get up to those signboards there. Check in and see if they've picked up any signs of his tracks. Standing by. Brent, I've only picked them up about 200 meters south of the Valentine's junction. Most of them. Okay, copy. Maybe check all the way down Zoe's right down to Gowrie Main. I will choose a guide, so I can't see where they've gone off the road or if they've gone off the road. Copy. Some of the tracks that came out on Valentine's Road looked very fresh. I don't know if you missed them. I think he might have just moved in the middle of the day. Okie dokie. Let us go and see if we can figure out if Mbula has decided to come on to Arathusa. How interesting is it that he has moved in towards such unusual areas? Just to relay that conversation, Brent and myself just checking in and planning a search for him. I've got Brent checking all the way down south along the western, sort of just one road in from the western boundary that we found his tracks on in case he comes back on. Brent was a bit worried that he's missed the tracks, but I don't think so. I think that those tracks were from earlier today. Oh, sorry, hold on. Jackson's picked up tracks on Gowrie, Maine. Oh, friend trying to talk to me. I couldn't hear what on earth he said there. Gowrie, Maine. Oh, friend trying to talk to me. I couldn't hear what on earth he said there.
Down that way, see if there's anything to be found. But I think I'm going to stick to our original plan, is we're not really looking for anything, because that seems to be the best way to find everything. So let's just... So this morning, just before the end of the sunrise safari, Andy and Julie in Los Angeles wanted to know if there were any African equivalents of the Bigfoot. So in Southern Africa, not really, no, but in West Africa there is one. It's called the Kulikamba. Now, the Kulikamba is said to be sort of a half chimp, half gorilla that lives on the edge of the Verdun Vaz. Now, the Verdun Vaz is a massive lagoon system that comes off the Agoe River in Gabon. It's a massive area of swamp forest and mainland forest. Lots of gorillas, lots of chimpanzees, lots of forest elephants, lots and lots of stuff. Now, there is an old Miene, which is the tribe from that area, story about this creature called a Kulikamba. Now, it is said to be bipedal, so it goes along quite along with the Bigfoot, and incredibly strong and much more intelligent than gorillas or chimpanzees. And it is said to be able to kill a person if they find them. They're supposed to be quite aggressive. Now, there's lots of weird and wonderful stories that come out of rainforest, because there's the original people, apart from the pygmies, didn't really push very deep into the forests. So I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a French man I met, a very nice man, who, while I was living in Gabon, who completely believed in Kulikamba. And he spent quite a lot of time in the Verdun Vaz, fishing and doing all sorts of things. And he was convinced that there was definitely, it was there, it exists, and he's got proof. Now, we were with people who've known him for quite a long while, and they sort of rolled their eyes slightly, and I should have taken note. So off he goes into his storeroom and comes out with this bags of bones to prove about the Kulikamba. He had a variation of different chimp and gorilla bones that he was trying to mix together to create this bipedal upright thing. So you basically had a gorilla skull with chimp vertebrae, or a chimp skull with gorilla vertebrae. And if you've done any sort of biology or anatomy, this doesn't work. But shame, he is 100% convinced. He even spent a huge amount of money sending this off to ape experts around the world, in France and Switzerland and the States, with explaining how the different things got put together. And each one of the different experts sent him a very kindly email back saying, "Dear sir, you are sending us a mixture of chimpanzee and gorilla bones." But to this day, he still firmly believes the Kulikamba exists. I don't, but I would be ecstatic to find out if it did. It would be wonderful to find a new great ape species, but I think it's not going to happen. Jean-Andre thinks it exists. He's nodding. He's like, "There's a Kulikamba." I think Jean-Andre wants to go find it. Yeah, Jean-Andre, we could go make a movie looking for Kulikamba. Jean-Andre's got a big smile on his face. He likes that idea. I know Jean-Andre would love to get up to Gabon. Beautiful part of the world. But you do have to get used to being bitten by every form of insect under the sun. Oh, wait, you don't even see the sun in the rainforest. But it is a beautiful, beautiful place. A very challenging place to work, but extremely interesting. An amazing diversity of species, specifically insects. So we've got this exquisite afternoon light, and now let's try find something with a heartbeat to put on it. I think if I ask Chandra to film another butterfly, I might get a whack on the back of the head. So let's find him a wasp to film. Just joking, Chandra. Okay, let's go find some stuff. Seems to think that the cameramen find the animals far more than the presenters. And there's a big thumbs up from Chandra. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, John?
I thought they were calling me.
Yeah, check the film on
Sorry about that, just listening to everyone's checking. So, there's a few reasons. The cameramen sit quite a bit higher than us, which is a really nice advantage, and obviously it's beneficial for all of us that they can spot the animals. But I would like to wager money on that I'll spot more animals than the cam ops. Would you like to take a wager on this, Chandra?
Let's do so.
So we're going to have a bet who can spot the most animals between the cameraman and the presenter. Hello everyone, hello Michael. How's everyone doing?
Good, and you?
Not too bad. Don't get lost now.
I'll try not to. I've got a quick one.
Yes. Cheers guys. So Mike, who's Candace's husband from Djuma, is out on game drive with a few friends, and some of the friends are also friends of mine who I used to work with, and one I actually went to school with from when we were 6 years old. No, 5 years old, so nice to see them out and about. But so, bets on, Chandra. Here we go. So let's just lay some ground laws here. Now, are we including impala, everything? Are we? Okay. Why don't you guys lay the ground laws for us? What are the rules for the competition between cam ops and the guiding team when it comes to spotting animals? So I just heard a whole bunch of oxpeckers take off, and quite often there's an animal around when that happens. Could be buffalo. We did have quite a few. There's dust. Something's going on there. I can just see dust coming out of the bush there. Now, is it a buffalo? Yes, it's a buffalo who was rolling. There we go. I was hoping it was something else, but there's some very old buffalo bulls through that gap there, and I think they were just having a rub, and it disturbed the oxpeckers. Here we go. I think it's the same gentleman we saw towards the end of the sunrise safari. They were in this area. Here we go. So why don't you guys set the rules? Let's make it relatively simple. Do we spot all animals or only members of the sort of more interesting and big, so sort of buffalo, lion, elephant, hippo, or do we include impala, steenbok, everything? And I think just to keep it much easier, we'll stick to mammals. So no birds, no reptiles, but no butterflies. No butterflies. So no insects, no reptiles, no birds. We'll stick to the mammals, and let's put a time on it. Okay, well, it is 5 p.m. now, or 2 minutes past 5. So we're not going to let it dominate everything, so we'll just do it for the next half an hour. Okay, let's go. Only mammals, half an hour. Dun, 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 dun. Now Chandra is standing up to get a higher view than even when he's sitting down. But there's ways to deal with this. I just hit the brakes very hard, and he might join me in the front. Okay, so we are going to give a hand in searching for that female leopard, so I will be looking for tracks as well.
Wildebeest.
Oh, there we go. Chandra is standing up high, and he has spotted a wildebeest. I Okay, is this how we're going to play now? There we go. Well spotted, Genre of Wild the Beast. Hello, mister. So 1 point to Genre. Right, we're still looking at the wildebeest, Genre. So it looks like it's that male. Let me just go back a bit. So it's going to be quite interesting because the rutting season for wildebeest is going to be starting quite soon. So this male's, although he's in a little bit of a thicket there at the moment, he's got quite a nice territory because he's got a little pan below us, a nice open short grass area that'll attract the ladies. And wildebeest are very, very specific fielders. Impala. Behind the wildebeest.
No.
Yes?
No.
There's an impala behind the wildebeest.
No.
Okay, so as I was saying, he's got himself a really nice little territory here. So the females are going to be brought in specifically as it gets a bit drier, and he'll defend this little territory against all the other wildebeest bulls. So hopefully we will be starting to see some of those big herds, and it's really fascinating behavior during that rutting, watching those males panic around and try keep those ladies inside their territory. But the ladies will move through multiple male territories, so mating with multiple males sometimes, and that helps with genetic diversity. So very interesting, and it's going to be fun to watch when the rut starts. So there's going to be 2 other species. Of course, we know all about the impala rat, but there's another species that ruts that people don't know about too much. I have chatted about it a bit this last couple of weeks, and that's warthog. So we will be keeping an eye out for all that interesting mating behavior over the next little while. So we're going to go head off slightly more to the south. While we do that, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
Look at how beautiful this grass is. Now it's funny, this is the first time I've actually had a chance to get to know the different grass species of the Sabi Sands area that I started working here last year, July, and it was in midwinter, so there was no grass. Then we had the drought, so there was no grass. So this is the first time I'm seeing the inflorescences, so the reproductive parts of the grass, as clearly. Now I'm fairly certain this is a type of signal grass. I used to know all of the grasses where I used to work, but this is a new one for me. I have to go and double check exactly what it is. It's got the most beautiful red color to it. I do have my grass book somewhere, so I will look that up. It looks as though it's quite a hardy species. Maybe one of the pioneer grass species. And the reason I say that is just because it's on quite an eroded part of Red Dam's dam wall. Now just have a look at how full Red Dam is. This is probably the most water I've ever seen here. Again, when I arrived, it was basically empty. I had a sighting with Karula and Tingana on the other side of this dam wall mating. And we were able to drive right through to the other side. I don't know if many of you must remember that afternoon. It was an extraordinary afternoon where Tingana and Karula had been mating but feeding off a dead buffalo that was in the drainage line at the same time. It was just a little bit in towards this drainage line. And we went back to go and find Tingana and Karula that afternoon, Viam and myself. We found Tingana just here. And then we drove a little bit further up towards where the buffalo carcass was, thinking Karula was going to be there. And there was the Salala Pride sitting, having obviously decided to start scavenging off that buffalo themselves. Then Karula appeared on the scene, and we had them mating on the dam wall right in front of us, with the other vehicle with guests on it looking straight up at them. It must have been the most incredible eye-level view for those guests. And then Tingana and Karula promptly walking back towards the buffalo carcass without realizing the Salala Pride was there. And at that moment, there was absolute chaos. There was growling. The young Salala males chased Karula and Tingana in this direction. Karula, I think, went up. Which tree did she go up? I think she went up that funny little knobthorn over there. Yes, it was. good afternoon to Inshan, who is watching us on YouTube for the very first time. And it's interesting that we've had this conversation this morning as well as this afternoon. But Inshan would like to know, do we ever see any jaguars? Well, Inshan, no, we don't. But we do see a very close relative of theirs, the leopard. It's basically the called the Greater Kruger National Park area. At the moment specifically, we have our little area worth of unfenced wilderness area. Our jaguars, we did speak about this morning, are more based towards South and Central America, with El Jefe, the jaguar, being seen in Arizona just recently. And I even touched on the subject this morning, saying that I wouldn't be surprised if there are more jaguars wandering around the southern US without and with people not realizing for years and years. There was a leopard that denned in the drainage pipe of a big sports stadium, the Ellis Park Sports Stadium in Johannesburg, a few years ago. There's also a leopard that made her way into an abandoned block of apartments in Pretoria. So two of our biggest cities, or one of the biggest cities in South Africa, and we had leopards wandering about there. And just like them, I think that jaguars have quite a similar ability to remain stealthy and undetected. Of course, the difference with jaguars is that a bit bigger and a bit stockier than the leopards that we see here. Whereas out here in the African bush, our apex predator, not counting man, of course, but we still see both lions. Stick with us. You will at some point see both leopards and lions on our show. Don't forget, we do this twice a day, every day. It will always be usually two of us, unless we've encountered a major problem, doing drives for you and finding as many wonderful animals as we possibly can. And the awesome thing about it is that it is alive. So what that means is anything that's happening on your screens is happening in real life, in real time, in South Africa, however many miles away. I'm not sure where you're from, but either way, the current events that are happening on your screen are, but in theory, fortunately, that's been made somewhat tricky by multiple passive vehicles on a that use it. It's also used by delivery trucks and vehicles. And I just wanted to check this block really, really carefully, or this road really carefully, to see that he hasn't decided to pop out somewhere here. No updates on the Game Drive channel, by the way, from Arathusa. And it seems as though most people are quite far away from where we are, so for now we are on our own on our leopard tracking mission. And of course out here, always the chance that we could encounter Shadow. Shadow being Karula's daughter. I spoke about Karula before. She's known as the Queen of Djuma. Her daughter Shadow, this is right in the center of her territory, and she also happens to have cubs. That means we're not going to go looking for her in drainage lines and such places, but there's always the chance that we might bump into her. Just wondering if these impala might perhaps know where she is. The most common antelope species out here. And as such, an antelope species that is constantly on alert, since it's on pretty much every predator's menu, except perhaps dwarf mongoose. I can't imagine a dwarf mongoose attempting to tackle a full-grown impala. Sorry, I've been distracted by that bizarre image now in my head. This morning I stopped at a herd of impala. It's one of the funniest things that has ever happened to me, or the strangest things that's ever happened to me on drive. Now, impala allow a bird called an oxpecker to sit on their backs and to feed off the ticks and the parasites that gather there. And this morning, the impala got a fright when we stopped, and they ran off and they disturbed the oxpeckers that were sitting on their backs. And the oxpecker came probably within 5 inches of flying straight into my head. I've never had that happen before. It was absolutely hilarious. Unfortunately, Dave was busy looking at the impala on the left. He had no idea that that was going to happen. I certainly didn't. But we didn't manage to get it live on camera. But that is the closest I've come to being injured essentially by a herd of impala, albeit through the motions of an oxpecker. I had a really, really close-up view of his tail feathers as he banked upwards. I'm not sure, though, who got more of a fright, whether it was me or the oxpecker. What are you two doing? They were up to something as I drove past, these Cape turtle doves. I don't know what it was. They looked like they might have been involved in a little bit of a scuffle. They look like they're up to no good, don't they? Pretending to be casual, but I know better. They were definitely up to something. Just an interesting aside. This is a bird, the dove, the dove is always associated in Western cultures as a bird of peace, a symbol of peace and love, released at weddings, which I've always found quite a bizarre concept, but nevertheless something that is released into the sky when people get married. Out here, local customs, the dove is a symbol of war or conflict, complete opposite, because they are capable of having such savage fights between two males. Instead, here the bird of peace is the lilac-breasted roller, another bird that we very commonly see. Just a random piece of information. It's also a bird, the lilac-breasted roller is probably the most attractive birds, or one of the most attractive birds out here, with the worst call, the most unmelodious, jarring, screeching call. We spoke yesterday about our favorite bird calls, and I asked the viewers what their favorite bird calls were. I think we failed to touch on the other side of that coin, our worst bird calls. Like this one's quite a jarring call. Okay, top 5 worst bird calls. Vultures have got to go up to the top. Crowned lapwings, quite high up, like the one that we're looking at the moment. Lilac-breasted rollers. Hardy-daws is quite a good one.
Can that be number 1?
You want to make hardy-daws number 1, Viam? Okay. I don't know though, vultures is a pretty terrifying sound. Vultures sound like screeching dinosaurs. There's one more bird I want to show you, just while we're here. Not a bird with an offensive call, but a lovely bird, never mind. He's gone. Now, I think the reason... It was a hoopoo, by the way. Hello, I'm sure you have a nest here somewhere, but I promise I'm not coming to squish it. Oh, so cross. Now, this is a sound as a child. Oh, it's loud. I associated with being dive bombed and possibly with my head being pecked. Sure. Now, we spoke about bird tracks. I'm going to shout over this lapwing's call. We spoke about identifying bird tracks, and I mentioned that with ground birds. It's okay, I promise. Oh, my word, okay. There we go. Why did you put it there? Why on earth? There you go, Viam. Definitely winning a competition that I wasn't willing to enter into with him. This is why we are getting into so much trouble. Alright, 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 alright. Why did you put it in such a stupid place, you silly bird? Right next to a road. Okay, shall we leave this poor parent lapwing to protect the eggs? I think I'm quite scared that it's going to come savage us. Alright, okay, we're going, I promise. Shame, sorry. Whew. Let me just clear my eardrum quickly. Interesting, isn't it? Instant cut off that sound. It always astounds me how crowned lapwings build nests like that. Right out in the open, you saw how camouflaged those eggs are, so beautifully camouflaged. But just imagine an entire herd of elephants walking down that road and on either side. It's an interesting choice of nesting technique. Why not just put it, I don't know, like at the base of a bush somewhere? I'm sure that would be more sensible. Now that, if I'd got out now and I'd gone to potentially threaten their nest, which of course I was never going to do, but if I had, what that crowned lapwing would have done is, first of all, it would have screeched and dive bombed at me to try and send me on my way. If that hadn't worked, it would have played the broken, you know how ducks do? So pretending to have a broken wing, certain species of ducks anyway, pretending to have a broken wing. So running along with a wing out like this as a distraction technique to draw the predator's attention away from the nest and the birds away as far as possible before the birds miraculously recover and fly away. It's a clever little technique that they've got going on. And that, I think, would have been the next step after shouting at me like that. I'm positively deaf now. Sure. Okay, very silly place to put their nest. Right on the side of the road. I will let people know, by the way. Hopefully the screeching of the crowned lapwings will alert people to the presence of it. Sure. Interesting. Now, it's interesting about the crowned lapwings and other ground nesting birds. Crowned lapwings, blacksmith lapwings. Now, in most countries, insulating a nest would be the most important thing about nesting, using the body heat to incubate the eggs. Now, out here, the African sun does a perfectly good job of incubating the eggs all to themselves. On hot summer days, or even hot autumn days, today must have been at least over 6 degrees. To go to the chest of cool. So a completely opposite approach to most birds in a more temperate climate as opposed to ours. Okay, I don't think this leopard has come out this way. Aha! Now, this is a wonderful news. It seems as though Brent has been tracking hard, and he has been for the last 2 days. Let's go and see the fruits of his labor, finally. The Queen of Djuma herself.
So guys, Jandre and I have of course put our spotting competition on hold for the Queen of Djuma, and what a spectacular sight. She's up in a tree. We actually didn't find her ourselves. We were helping track her, but Taxon has found her, and she does have a kill with her as well. So that's excellent news. So if we go into that shadow underneath that big marula there, that big marula bough, sorry. Oh, she's popped her head over now. So if we go up slightly, you can just see the duiker in the shadow there. Looks like she's got a young duiker above her. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Okay, I think, oops, she nearly dropped it. Lucky there's no hyenas around. Started alarm calling at her. So this is the reason the tracks have been going to and fro. I must have walked so close to her about 3 times yesterday. But there's a possibility she might have been with the cubs, so not here. You know, she's eating the dyker's nose at the moment. I'm just trying to think where we can move. Unfortunately, at the moment, this is our best spot, so we're going to stick with it. So I know all of you are as happy as me to catch up with the Queen of Djuma in magnificent light. And good to see she's got a meal. Nice marula tree that she's in. And you can see how difficult it is to spot them from a distance. Now, in this particular area is where I was playing hide from the buffalo yesterday. Let's have a look. Should we have a look from over here, Jean-André? We're just going to have a quick look. So Julianne, who's watching on YouTube, is wondering, when will the cubs begin to eat meat? Normally at about 3 months or so, maybe even a little bit younger sometimes, but it shouldn't be too long now. Okay, hang on, let's just try and sneak through, see if we can get it. How's that, Chandra? There we go. No branch in the way. So what this means is the cubs are still to the south of us, because we've had tracks to and from, to and from, to and from. This morning I must have had 3 different sets of her tracks crossing the southern boundary. But of course she's still utilizing this area to hunt. And hopefully she's going to bring those little ones back to Djuma soon. So I haven't seen whether it's a male or female diker just yet that she's caught. Now, Karula really likes diker and steenbok. Those are her sort of 2 preferred prey species. It looks like she's going to move us into an awkward spot for us again. Let's just try and go around a little bit more. How's that, Chandra? Will that do? Oh, isn't that beautiful? If you guys hear that clickety-click, sorry, that's just me. Such a beautiful sight. I can't resist but click off a few shots. If you listen carefully, you can even hear her crunching. Oh, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So Laura in Happy Valley is saying, Brent, you said you had 3 sets of her tracks to and from across the road this morning, but she's wondering, how do you track an animal through the bush and on the grass? With great difficulty, Laura. That's probably why I didn't find her. So at the moment, the ground's very hard. It is quite difficult to see the tracks, and fortunately, we have found her, but I'm a bit frustrated. I should have found her yesterday. I was just looking a little bit too far to the east. I was probably about 100 meters away, checking all the big marula trees in the block on the other side of Weaver's Nest. Oh, look at that. She's about to move it, and it is a male duiker. It's amazing the balance a leopard has. Incredible climber. So she'll come here, she'll feed on this duiker kill before returning to feed on the cubs. So she's generally going to be hunting in an area quite close to where her den site is. At the moment, we're pretty confident that her den site is on the other side of the main access road, Gowrie Main, so within a property called Little Gowrie. But hopefully she will be moving that den site soon. Oh, look at that. She's just moving that carcass to get a better view. Oh, sorry, not to get a better view, to get a better grip, a better place to feed. So Zinc on YouTube is asking, is she used to the people in the vehicles? She seems to look over but doesn't seem too perturbed at all. Well, Zinc, she's very used to vehicles, not so much people. I don't believe she sees the individual people in each of the vehicles. She does know the vehicles there, and she has been followed by them since she was a small cub. As long as you drive respectfully and carefully around, she's not going to react badly to the vehicles. Obviously, if you drive too close or you drive too fast, then she might react. But if we keep our distance and keep our respect, it's going to be just like this. She's going to carry on with her natural life as she would if we weren't here. So Len in Virginia is wondering, where does the name Karula come from? And if does it mean anything? Karula is the peaceful one. It is the Shangaan word for peaceful. And that's where the name comes from. Although she doesn't look completely peaceful eating the poor duiker. But if you're a duiker, she's definitely not a peaceful one.